You've stood in front of a breathtaking scene, raised your camera, and clicked. But when you look at the screen, the magic is gone. The image is flat. It's cluttered. It feels nothing like what you saw. The camera didn't fail. You just weren't speaking its language yet. That's because you were looking at the subject, but your camera was looking at the light. Your brain is the ultimate photo editor. It filters out distractions, balances the shadows, and focuses purely on the emotion of a place. Your camera? Your camera is just a dumb, literal machine. It records exactly what is there, ruthlessly and without feeling. I'm Dale Sinclair, and today we're fixing those flat, disappointing snapshots by mastering the art of active observation. We are going to train your eyes to stop seeing the world like a tourist and start seeing it like you belong there. Before we talk about apertures or shutter speeds, we have to fix the software running behind the viewfinder, your brain. The biggest hurdle for a beginner isn't the gear, it's a biological glitch. We look at the world passively. We look at nouns. Cameras only understand physics. When you look at a forest in the Canadian Shield, your brain says tree, rock, lake. But the camera doesn't know what a pine tree is. The camera only understands light, shadow, color, and geometry. To take creative control, you have to switch from passive looking to active observation. And the first physical step to doing that happens before the lens cap even comes off. I call it the camera down rule. When you arrive at a location, keep the camera strapped to your side. Your viewfinder is a framing tool, not a scouting tool. Don't look through it until your naked eye has already found the light. You have to stop looking at nouns and start looking at adjectives and verbs. How is the light hitting the rock? Is the shadow falling across the path? If you want to cure a flat photo instantly, actively look for texture. Texture is only created by shadows. If the sun is directly over your shoulder, hitting your subject flat on, the shadows fall behind them. The texture vanishes. But if you move your feet so the light is hitting your subject from the side, suddenly every ridge in the bark, every line in the face, every ripple in the water pops out. If you're in the field and you're really struggling to see these shadows, if the vibrant colors of the landscape are tricking your brain back into looking at nouns, try the monochrome hack. Take the extra few seconds to dive into your camera or phone settings and switch your picture profile to black and white. Because it requires menu diving, you don't need to do this for every shot. Use it purely as a diagnostic tool when you feel uncertain. Stripping away the color forces your brain to look purely at contrast. Once you find the light in black and white, you can always switch the color back on. But recognizing the light is only half the battle. You also have to understand how poorly your camera handles it compared to your own eyes. Let's look at the physics of why this matters. It comes down to something called dynamic range. Think of dynamic range as a bucket that catches contrast, from the brightest brights to the darkest darks. Your human eye has a massive bucket. You can look into a dark cave and see the rocks inside, while simultaneously seeing the bright blue sky outside. Your brain constantly adjusts, combining different exposures in real time. Your digital sensor has a very small bucket. It has to choose. It can expose for the bright sky outside the cave, leaving the inside completely black. Or it can expose for the dark cave, blowing the sky out into pure, detailless white. This limitation forces you to make a choice. I call it the sacrifice. Imagine you're shooting a bright, snow-covered street in old Montreal on a sunny winter day. The contrast is massive. The camera panics. Do you want the crisp, sparkling texture of the white snow, or do you want the dark details inside the shadowy brick alleys? You cannot have both in a single frame. Active observation means deciding what the hero of your shot is and letting the rest fall into shadow or blow out to white. You stop relying on the camera to guess, and you start making intentional sacrifices. When you don't actively observe this contrast, you end up with blown-out skies and muddy, gray shadows. If that concept just saved your next shoot, make sure you're subscribed for more field dispatches here at North of Wendigo. We're building a community of photographers who understand their craft from the ground up. The second biological glitch is the invisible clutter. Your brain completely ignores the ugly telephone pole behind your subject. It tunes out the bright yellow garbage can on the edge of the street, but the camera sees it all. The camera flattens the world into a single plane, so anything behind your subject merges with them. This is where you practice the next physical mechanic of active observation, the border patrol. Before you press the shutter, Force your eye to physically trace the 4 outer edges of your viewfinder. Check the corners. Is a stray branch creeping into the frame? Is there a distracting highlight pulling the viewer's eye away from your subject? Catch the clutter before the sensor records it. If you're struggling to spot the clutter, try the squint test. Before you shoot, squint your eyes until the scene goes slightly blurry. Nouns will disappear, but bright, distracting highlights on the edge of your frame will glow like neon signs. Those are your distractions. Shift your lens an inch to the left to crop them out. Now, how do we apply this in the real world? Active observation isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about hunting for the narrative. It's about using light to tell the truth about a place. Think about the light cutting through a dense stand of birch trees on a foggy morning. If you just walk up and shoot the trees, you get a snapshot. But if you stop, put the camera down and watch the light, you'll notice how the fog diffuses the sun, creating soft, wrapping illumination. You'll notice the leading lines created by the shadows on the forest floor. You change your position, you crouch down, you frame the shot so the darkest shadow points directly to the brightest highlight. That is active observation. But this brings us to the most important part of our workflow, the professional code. When we actively observe a scene, we often find things we don't like. A distracting branch in the foreground, a piece of deadfall ruining our pristine composition. Our field ethic is simple. We practice leave no trace, both physically and digitally. We do not snap live branches to get a clear shot. We don't trample fragile undergrowth because we were too lazy to find a better angle. We move our feet. We change our perspective. We let the environment dictate the frame. And digitally, we adhere to the honest frame. Let's be practical. Cleaning up a stray flyaway hair in a portrait, or cloning out a distracting twig or a discarded candy wrapper on a trail. That is standard, acceptable darkroom practice. But there is a hard line. In the field, we completely reject generative fabrication. If the golden light wasn't there, we don't fake it with AI. We do not swap out backgrounds to pretend we were at a different location, and we never invent subjects that didn't exist. We document the world's truth, and we earn the primary frame through patience, not shortcuts. A slightly imperfect photo that tells the truth is infinitely more valuable than a flawless lie. When you rely on AI to completely change your location or invent your light, you stop observing. You stop being a photographer, and you start being a prompt engineer. The magic of this craft is the discipline of finding the shot in the real world. It's time to get out of the studio and put this into practice. Your assignment today has nothing to do with shutter speed, ISO, or megapixels. In fact, you don't even need a dedicated camera for this. This exercise rewires your visual instincts faster than any technical setting ever will. Your assignment is the shadow hunt. I want you to go outside, whether that's a provincial park, an urban alleyway, or your own backyard. Do not look for an interesting subject. Look for an interesting shadow. Find a clean, graphic boundary where shadow meets light. Your composition will grow from that line. Once you find that boundary line, I want you to build a composition around it. Place an everyday object, a leaf, a coffee cup, a friend, right on the edge of that light. If you are shooting on a smartphone, this exercise is perfectly designed for you. Tap the screen to focus on the brightest part of the image and pull the little sun icon down to darken the exposure. Watch how the shadows plunge into pure black, removing all the clutter and leaving you with pure geometry. I want you to take 3 photos where the shadow takes up more than half of the frame. Learn to love the dark areas of your image. They are what give the light its power. Understanding how your camera sees light, recognizing that its bucket is smaller than your eyes, and that it sees every single distraction your brain ignores, is the foundation of everything we will do from here on out. Once you stop shooting what you think you see and start shooting the light that is actually there, you cease being a passive observer. You stop reacting to the world and start shaping it. Next time, we're going to look at the first pillar of the exposure triangle. We're going to talk about the physical pupil of your lens and how you can use it to control depth and focus. I'm Dale Sinclair. Always trace the edges of your frame, and I'll see you on the path.